Hi everybody, I'm going to read the second half of our chapter called Through the Trapdoor. When we finished our last half of the chapter, Harry and his friends, Harry had first fallen down, and went thump on top of something soft through the trapdoor. He could see that the trapdoor light was about the size of a postage stamp, teeny tiny, which means he'd fallen quite a long way before he stopped. Let's find out what happens to Harry, Hermione, and Ron in the rest of this chapter. "It's okay," he called up to the light the size of a postage stamp, which was the open trapdoor. "It's a soft landing. You can jump." Ron followed straight away. He landed sprawled next to Harry. "What's this stuff?" were his first words. "I dunno, sort of a plant thing. I suppose it's here to break the fall. Come on, Hermione." You can see in this beautiful illustration the depths to which they fell. And oh, it looks like they fell into some kind of plant. Let's find out what happens. The distant music stopped. There was a loud bark from the dog, but Hermione had already jumped. She landed on Harry's other side. "We must be miles under the school," she said. "Lucky this plant thing's here, really," said Ron. "Lucky!" shrieked Hermione. "Look at you both!" She leapt up and struggled towards a damp wall. She had to struggle because the moment she landed, the plant had started to twist, snake-like tendrils all around her ankles. As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly in long creepers without them even noticing. Hermione had managed to free herself before the plant got a firm grip on her. Now she watched in horror as the two boys fought to pull the plant off of them. But the more they strained against it, the tighter and faster the plant wound around them. "Stop moving," Hermione ordered them. "I know what this is. It's Devil's Snare." "Oh, I'm so glad we know what it's called. That's a great help," snarled Ron, leaning back, trying to stop the plant curling around his neck. "Oh, be quiet. I'm trying to remember how to kill it," said Hermione. "Hurry up. I can't breathe," Harry gasped, wrestling with it as it curled around his chest. "Devil's Snare, Devil's Snare. Oh, what did Professor Sprout say? It likes the dark and the damp." "So light a fire," Harry choked. "Yes, of course, but there's no wood," Hermione cried, wringing her hands. "Have you gone mad?" Ron bellowed. "Are you a witch or not?" "Oh, right," said Hermione, and she whipped out her wand, waved it, and muttered something, and sent a jet of the same blue bell flames she had used on Snape at the plant. In a matter of seconds, the two boys felt it loosen its grip as it cringed away from the light and warmth. Wriggling and flailing, it unraveled itself from their bodies, and they were able to pull free. "Lucky you pay attention in her biology, Hermione," said Harry as he joined her by the wall, wiping the sweat off his face. "Yeah," said Ron, "and lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood, honestly." "This way," said Harry, pointing down the stone passageway, which was the only way on. And all they could hear apart from their footsteps was the gentle drip of water trickling down the walls. The passageway sloped downwards, and Harry was reminded of Gringotts. With an unpleasant jolt of the heart, he remembered what the dragon said to be guarding With an unpleasant jolt of the heart, he remembered the dragons said to be guarding vaults in the Wizard's Bank. If they met a dragon, a fully grown dragon? Well, Norbert had been bad enough. "Can you hear something?" Ron whispered. Harry listened. A soft rustling and clicking seemed to be coming from up ahead. "Do you think it's a ghost?" "Well, I don't know. It sounds like wings to me." "There's a light ahead. I can see something moving." They reached the end of the passageway and saw before them a brilliantly lit chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. It was full of small, jewel-bright wings, fluttering and tumbling all around the room. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. "Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room?" said Ron. "Probably," said Harry. "They don't look very vicious, but I suppose if they all swoop down at once, well, there's nothing for it. I'll run." He took a deep breath, covered his face with his arms, and sprinted across the room. He expected to feel the sharp beaks and claws tearing at him any second, but nothing happened. He reached the door untouched. He pulled the handle, but it was locked. The other two followed him. They tugged and heaved at the door, but it wouldn't budge. Not even when Hermione tried her Alohomora charm. All right, let's have a look at this page. All the birds are scattered around the words. You can see they're not completely birds, are they? They're keys with wings fluttering around the room. Beautiful illustrations here. Now what? Said Ron. These birds, they can't be here just for decoration, said Hermione. They watched the birds soaring overhead, glittering. Glittering? They're not birds, said Harry suddenly. They're keys, winged keys. Look carefully. So that must mean... He looked around the chamber while the other two squinted up at the flocks of keys. Yes, look, broomsticks. We've got to catch the key to open the door. Oh, but there are hundreds of them. Ron examined the lock on the door. We're looking for a big, old-fashioned one, probably silver like the handle. They seized a broomstick each and kicked off into the air, soaring into the midst of the clouds of keys. They grabbed and snatched, but the bewitched keys darted and dived so quickly it was almost impossible to catch one. Not for nothing, though, Harry was the youngest seeker in a century. He had the knack for spotting things that other people didn't. And after a minute's weaving around the whirl of rainbow feathers, he noticed a large silver key that had a bent wing, as though it had already been caught and stuffed roughly into a keyhole. Let me show you which one he means. That one there. Can you see its wing? That one, he called to the others. That big one. There. There. With the bright blue feathers. The feathers are all crumpled up on one side. Ron went speeding in the direction that Harry was pointing and crashed into the ceiling and nearly fell off his broom. We've got to close in on it, Harry called, not taking his eyes off the key with the damaged wing. Ron, can you come at it from above? Hermione, stay below it. Stop it going down, and I'll try to catch it. Right now! Ron dived. Hermione rocketed upwards, and the key dodged them both, and Harry streaked after it. It sped towards the wall. Harry leant forward, and with a nasty crunching noise, pinned it against the stone with one hand. Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed around the high chamber. They landed quickly, and Harry ran to the door, the key struggling in his hand. He rammed it into the lock and turned it. It worked! The moment the lock had clicked open, the key took flight again, looking very battered now that it had been caught twice. Ready? Harry asked the other two, his hand on the door handle. They nodded, and he pulled the door open. The next chamber was so dark that they couldn't see anything at all. But as they stepped into it, light suddenly flooded the room to reveal an astonishing sight. They were standing at the edge of a huge chessboard, behind the black chessmen, which were all taller than they were, and carved from what looked like black stone. Facing them, way across the chamber, were the white pieces. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shivered slightly. The towering white chessmen had no faces. A bit spooky. Now what will we do? Harry whispered. It's obvious, isn't it? Said Ron. We've got to play our way across the room. Behind the white pieces, they could see another door. How? Said Hermione nervously. I think, said Ron, we're going to have to beat chessmen. He walked up to the Black Knight and put his hand out to touch the knight's horse. At once, the stone sprang to life. The horse pawed the ground, and the knight turned its helmeted head to look down at Ron. Do we, have to join you to get across? The Black Knight nodded. Ron turned to the other two. This wants thinking about, he said. I suppose we've got to take the place of 3 of the black pieces. Harry and Hermione stayed quiet, watching Ron think. Finally, he said, Now, don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are that good at chess. We're not offended, said Harry quickly. Just tell us what to do. Well, Harry, you take the place of that bishop, and Hermione, you go there instead of that castle. What about you? I'm going to be a knight, said Ron. The chessmen seemed to have been listening, because at these words, A knight, a bishop, and a castle turned their backs on the white pieces and walked off the board, leaving 3 empty squares, which Harry, Ron, and Hermione took. "White always plays first in chess," said Ron, peering across the board. "Yes, look." A white pawn had moved forward 2 squares. Ron started to direct the black pieces. They moved silently wherever he sent them. Harry's knees were trembling. What if they lost? "Harry, move diagonally 4 squares to the right." Their first real shock came when the other knight was taken. The White Queen smashed him to the floor and dragged him off the board, where he lay quite still, face down. "Had to let that happen," said Ron, looking shaken. "It leaves you free to take that bishop. Hermione, go on." Have a look at these pieces and the characters' faces. It looks quite spooky in there. And Harry certainly looks a bit upset. Every time one of their men was lost, the white pieces showed no mercy. Soon there was a huddle of limp black players slumped along the wall. Twice, Ron only just noticed in time that Harry and Hermione were in danger, and he himself darted around the board, taking almost as many white pieces as had been lost with the black ones. "We're nearly there," he muttered suddenly. Let me think. The White Queen turned her blank face towards him. "Yes," said Ron softly. "It's the only way. I've got to be taken." "No!" Harry and Hermione shouted. "That's chess," snapped Ron. "You've got to make some sacrifices. I'll make my move and she'll take me. That leaves you free to checkmate the king, Harry." "But do you want to stop Snape or not?" "Ron, look, if you don't hurry up, he'll already have the stone." There was nothing else for it. "Ready?" Ron called, his face pale but determined. "Here I go. Now, don't hang around once you've won." He stepped forward and the White Queen pounced. She struck Ron hard around the head with her stone arm and he crashed to the floor. Hermione screamed but stayed on her square. The White Queen dragged Ron to one side. It looked as though he'd been knocked out. Shaking, Harry moved 3 spaces to the left. The White King took off his crown and threw it at Harry's feet. They had won. The chessmen parted and bowed, leaving the door ahead clear. With one desperate look back at Ron, Harry and Hermione charged through the door and up to the next passage. "What if he's—" "He'll be all right," said Harry, trying to convince himself. "What do you reckon's next?" "We've had sprouts. That was the devil's snare. Flitwick must have put the charm on the keys. McGonagall transfigured the chessmen to make them alive. So that leaves Quirrell's spell and Snape's." They reached another door. "All right," Harry whispered. "Go on." Harry pushed it open. A disgusting smell filled their nostrils, making both of them pull up their robes over their noses. Eyes watering, they saw, flat on the floor in front of them, a troll, even larger than the one that they had tackled. Out cold with a bloody lump on its head. "I'm glad we didn't have to fight that one," Harry whispered as they stepped carefully over one of its massive legs. "Come on, I can't breathe." He pulled open the next door, both of them hardly daring to look at what came next. But there was nothing very frightening in there, just a table with 7 differently shaped bottles standing in a line. "Snape's," said Harry. "What do we have to do?" They stepped over the threshold and immediately a fire sprang up behind them in the doorway. It wasn't an ordinary fire either. It was purple. Have a look at this page. You can see the purple and black flames coming up. They were trapped. "Look," said Hermione, and she seized a roll of paper lying next to one of the bottles. Harry looked over her shoulder and read it. "Danger lies before you, while safety lies behind. 2 of us will help you, whichever you would find. One of us 7 will let you move ahead. Another will transport the drinker back instead. 2 among our number hold only nettle wine. 3 of us are killers. waiting hidden in line. Choose unless you wish to stay here forevermore. To help you in your choice, we'll give you these clues. 4. First, however slyly the potion tries to hide, you will always find some on Nettle Wine's left side. Second, different are those who stand at either end, but if you would move onwards, neither is your friend. Third, as you see clearly, all are of different size. Neither dwarf nor giant holds death on their insides. Fourth, the second left and the second on the right are twins once you taste them, though different at first sight. What a puzzle. Hermione let out a great sigh, and Harry, amazed, saw that she was smiling, the very last thing he felt like doing. Brilliant, said Hermione. This isn't magic, it's logic, it's a puzzle. A lot of these great wizards haven't got an ounce of logic, and they'd be stuck here forever. But so will we, won't we? Of course not, said Hermione. Everything we need is here on paper. 7 bottles, 3 are poison, 2 are wine, 1 will get us safely through the Blackfire, and 1 will get us back through the Purple. But how do we know which one to drink? Just give me a minute. Hermione read the paper several times. Then she walked up and down the line of bottles, muttering to herself and pointing at them. At last, she clapped her hands. Got it, she said. The smallest bottle will get us back through the Blackfire towards the stone. Harry looked at the tiny bottle. There's only enough for one of us, he said. That's hardly 1 swallow. They looked at each other. Which one will get you back through the purple flames? Hermione pointed at the rounded bottle on the right end of the line. You drink that, said Harry. No, listen. Get back and help Ron. Grab brooms from the Flying Key Room. They'll get you out of the trapdoor and past Fluffy. Go straight to the Owlery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. We need him. I might be able to hold Snape off for a while, but I'm no match for him, really. But Harry, what if you know who is with him? Well, I was lucky once, wasn't I? Said Harry, pointing to his scar. I might get lucky again. Hermione's lip trembled, and she suddenly dashed at Harry and threw her arms around him. Hermione! Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. I'm not as good as you, said Harry, very embarrassed as she let him go. Me, said Hermione, books and cleverness. Well, there are more important things, friendship and bravery, and, oh, Harry, please be careful. You drink first, said Harry. You're sure which one is which, aren't you? Positive, said Hermione. She took a long drink from the round bottle at the end and shuddered. It's not poison, said Harry anxiously. No, but it's like ice. Quickly, go, before it wears off. Good luck and take care. Go! Hermione turned and walked straight through the purple fire. Harry took a deep breath and picked up the smallest bottle. He turned to face the black flames. Here I come, he said, and he drained the little bottle in one gulp. It was indeed as though ice was flooding through his body. He put the bottle down and walked forward. He braced himself and saw the black flames licking his body, but he couldn't feel them. For a moment he could see nothing but dark fire, and then he was on the other side, in the last chamber. There was already someone there, but it wasn't Snape, and it wasn't even Voldemort. Do you know who it is? You might do. If you've read this book before, you might be able to guess as well. We've got, I think, only 1 chapter left in our story. But I bet a lot happens in that chapter. The last one is called The Man with Two Faces. All right. Wow. Thank you for joining me once again at Hogwarts. And from Harry and I, we will say bye-bye.